If I hadn't checked our security cameras that morning, I wouldn't have believed it myself. An HOA president screaming at my teenage daughter while sheriff cruisers rolled onto our land. 4 minutes later, that single decision would trigger the dumbest mistake an HOA could ever make, one that cost them $5 million. My name is Luke, and I'm a father before I'm anything else. I don't care about neighborhood politics or HOA drama, but I care deeply about my family and our land, especially my daughter, Emily. She was 17 at the time, responsible, calm, and used to helping around our ranch. That morning wasn't supposed to be memorable. It was just another quiet day outside city limits. But when authority gets abused and a child becomes the target, lines get crossed. And once that happens, I don't stay quiet. My name is Luke, and I'm a father before I'm anything else. I don't care about neighborhood politics or HOA drama, but I care deeply about my family and our land, especially my daughter, Emily. She was 17 at the time, responsible, calm, and used to helping around our ranch. That morning wasn't supposed to be memorable. It was just another quiet day outside city limits. But when authority gets abused and a child becomes the target, lines get crossed. And once that happens, I don't stay quiet. Our ranch sits on 30 acres just outside the city. We bought it over 20 years ago, long before most of the surrounding homes were built. Years later, a small voluntary HOA formed nearby to manage shared roads and a mailbox station. Voluntary being the key word. We never joined. We never signed anything. We never paid a dime. Legally, our property remained completely independent. For years, that wasn't an issue. The HOA handled their business, and we handled ours. That changed when a woman named Marissa became HOA president. She preferred to be called Madam President, but everyone else called her Karen. And unlike previous boards, Karen wasn't interested in cooperation. She wanted control. Almost immediately, Karen began pushing boundaries. She sent friendly reminders about rules that didn't apply to us. Then came notices taped to gates, then threats of fines. Each time I reminded her politely that we weren't part of her HOA. She never accepted that answer. To her, authority wasn't something you earned, it was something you took. She drove past our ranch constantly, taking pictures, making notes. It felt less like community management and more like surveillance. And when she realized she couldn't bully me directly, she waited for a moment when she thought I wasn't around. That moment came on a quiet morning I'll never forget. That morning, Emily was home alone, unloading feed bags from the truck to the barn. According to our cameras, at exactly 10:06 a.m., Karen marched up our gravel driveway, waving a clipboard like a weapon. She didn't knock. She didn't ask questions. She started yelling. Karen accused Emily of trespassing on HOA land and violating safety codes. Emily stayed calm, explaining that this was our ranch and we weren't part of the HOA. Karen didn't listen. She stepped closer, voice rising, finger pointed. Emily tried to back away toward the barn, clearly shaken but still respectful. At 10:08, Karen pulled out her phone. At 10:09, she made the call that would destroy her authority forever. Emily called me seconds later, her voice trembling. "Dad," she said, "there's a woman here yelling at me, and she just called the police." That's when I dropped everything and started driving. Karen didn't just call the police. She fabricated a story. She reported a dangerous intruder barricading herself inside a private structure. An intruder on our land. 2 sheriff units arrived within minutes, lights flashing. Emily stood near the barn, terrified and confused. She kept her hands visible, doing everything right. One deputy approached cautiously, already sensing something was off. Karen stood behind him, arms crossed, smug. She pointed at my daughter like she'd caught a criminal. When Emily called me again, I could hear the sirens in the background. I told her to stay calm and stay where she was. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the deputies were already questioning Karen's story. One deputy pulled me aside and said quietly, "Sir, this doesn't look like a police matter." Karen interrupted, demanding immediate eviction. She claimed HOA authority gave her full control. The younger deputy checked public records on his phone. "Ma'am," he said, "this parcel isn't in your HOA. It's independent property." Karen froze. Her face tightened. She insisted the records were wrong. The deputy shook his head. They weren't. In 4 minutes, everything Karen believed about her power collapsed. The land wasn't hers, the rules weren't hers, and the authority she was clinging to didn't exist. That moment was the first domino, and she didn't even realize it yet. Karen snapped. She accused the deputies of incompetence. She claimed my daughter was violating community rules anyway. Livestock visibility, equipment usage, none of it mattered. The deputies shut her down calmly. "This is private land. No crime occurred." Then he added something Karen didn't expect. "This call will be documented as a false report." Her husband arrived moments later, visibly embarrassed, trying to pull her away. She screamed threats at us as the deputies left. "You'll regret this," she said. But what she didn't know was that her threats had just activated a chain reaction she could never stop. 2 days later, a letter arrived from the HOA Compliance Division. They demanded a fine of $1,400 for Emily's behavior. Attached was a crude map showing our ranch suddenly inside HOA boundaries. It was laughable and illegal. I went straight to the county recorder's office. The clerk reviewed it and frowned. "This is fabricated," he said. "Altering boundaries like this is fraud." That's when Karen showed up at our gate again with 2 board members, threatening legal action. By putting those threats in writing, she crossed from harassment into criminal territory, and she handed us exactly what we needed. After I filed a formal complaint, neighbors started reaching out, quietly at first, then openly. They shared stories of fake fines, intimidation, and money disappearing into maintenance projects no one ever saw. One family paid thousands for violations that never existed. Another was threatened with foreclosure over grass color. These weren't accidents, they were patterns. And once multiple complaints hit the county, the response escalated. Investigators opened a full review of the HOA. Karen thought she was untouchable. In reality, she just turned on the floodlights. Our lawsuit followed quickly. Harassment, fraud, emotional distress, abuse of authority. Discovery revealed everything Karen tried to hide. The video of her screaming at my daughter played in court. Emily testified calmly, describing the fear she felt that day. The jury listened closely. Neighbors confirmed similar experiences. Former board members admitted they were pressured. The HOA tried to blame Karen alone. The judge disagreed. She was the president. Her actions represented the organization. Every argument they made fell apart under evidence they created themselves. The judge read the verdict slowly. Emotional damages, legal fees, punitive damages for fraud, $5 million. The courtroom went silent. The HOA couldn't survive it. Within weeks, residents voted to dissolve it entirely. Karen faced criminal charges separately. But for us, the verdict wasn't about money. It was about accountability, about drawing a line that should have never been crossed in the first place. Life returned to normal. Quiet mornings, open fields. Emily walked the ranch without fear again. The land felt like ours again. One evening she asked me if it was worth it. I looked at her and said yes, because standing up wasn't just for us. It was for everyone who'd been bullied into silence. Sometimes justice takes time, but when it arrives, it restores more than peace. It restores dignity.
Abuse of power always comes with a price. If you enjoyed this real-life HOA showdown, tap subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Drop a like if justice matters to you, and tell me in the comments, whose side are you on, the ranchers or the HOA?